Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is another in my practice session series for the Red Hat Certified Specialist in Identity Management Exam EX362. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click the subscribe button. Also, a reminder that these are my practice sessions, so my exam is about, I think is 11 days away. And so at this point, I'm going through all of the objectives posted by Red Hat and attempting to either explain whatever the objective is about or do some examples of whatever the objective wants you to do. At the end of the video, I'll do a little self-assessment, and hopefully at this point, I will be pretty confident with the objective. And if not, I still have about a week and a half of time to be able to brush up some last-minute knowledge gaps. So that being said, these should not be considered tutorials, nor should they be considered training materials or authoritative information for that matter. I do try to have the information accurate because hopefully, 11 days out from the exam, I haven't learned something wrong, but just understand I'm learning right along with you, so do not use these as authoritative tutorials. I put these out on the internet in hopes that if you are preparing for the EX362 exam, you might see some of the stuff that I'm doing in a practice session, and it might give you some ideas of some things that you can do to help yourself prepare. So we're moving on to the install and configure an IdM client set of objectives, and I'll be practicing the install and configure IdM clients. Now, this can be done either through an interactive command. It can be done via a script where you're basically doing what would be the interactive command, but with parameters and using the unattend or unattended, can't remember off the top of my head, using that parameter. Or you can use Ansible to do this. The free IPA, or I guess Ansible-free IPA package provides playbooks and such for being able to join clients to an IdM domain. For this practice session, I'm just going to use both the interactive and kind of the script method, because there's two different ways of authentication that I want to both demonstrate and practice. So I have two VMs that I've set up to eventually be client servers. So let me SSH into lab IdM client 1. And I'm going to go ahead and become root, because there'll be a few commands I would need to be using sudo for. So the package you need to install is the IPA client package. So we'll do DNF install IPA client. While that's searching, I'm going to go ahead and make a tab for the second IdM client, IdM client 2. And for this one, I'm going to just do a -y install. A lot of times I like seeing the packages that are going to happen, before I do the install. I'm going to install them anyway, but sometimes it's nifty to see what all comes with this. And with this, you'll see some of the IPA packages. You see CertMonger, which is the application that would keep your certificates up to date with the integrated certificate server. You'll see AutoFS come down. That's something that will hit with a different objective. You'll see OddJob, which I think I've mentioned this in a previous video. It's a service that's used to create your home directories when you first log in. Lots of Python scripts and tools for SSSD. It should already be, it's already finished on client 2. So it'll finish on client 1 in just a moment. All right, so let me clear my screen. And much like with an IPA server or IPA replica, there is an IPA client install command. Now for this, I'm going to do like the sole interactive way of making this happen. And let's see what this will look like. Now, first of all, it's complaining because my host name is not fully qualified. That is because I have not done the editing of the etc host file to where hostname-f will work. So let's do, need to get the IP address first. Let's do that now. This is lab IdM client 1.idm, ejslab.com, and make sure that's actually 1. Even though I said 1, I typed 2. And one other thing I'm going to need to do is change the DNS server to point to the IdM server. And I'm going to need to do that on the other VM as well. Okay, so let's try our interactive install again. IPA client install. All right, so discovery was successful. This is also discovering or looking for DNS records. Obviously, you need to have your Kerberos service records and LDAP service records, all that kind of stuff. But you would typically already have that set up with an IdM server, and you would have those records going in DNS. We are not going to configure a particular NTP server or pool, so I'm going to say no to that. This is what it has discovered on its own. The client hostname came from the hostname-f, and then these other items were discovered via DNS. And we do want to configure a system with these values. And then it's going to ask for a user that is authorized to enroll computers. I'm going to use the admin user. This would be any user that has the ability to do so. So if you had set up some of the role-based access in IdM and granted the user the rights to be able to enroll hosts, then you would be able to use that user. So we'll do admin, and this looks like a Kerberos principal. Monkey123, and we're off. All right, and to confirm that this actually worked, let's see if we can get a Kerberos ticket. So knet admin monkey123, and I did not get an error, so I have a Kerberos ticket. We will, if I were to do IPA host find, we'll now see, in addition to the IdM server and IdM replica, we now have IdM client, or lab-idm client 1. Let's see what it created for DNS. So IPA DNS record find, and the zone is going to be, we'll check the forward zone first. So this would be IdM ejslab.com. Do --help. I think I can tell it specifically the type of record, kind of like how dig would work, or maybe not. Okay. That's fine. So won't be a ton of records here. We should have a record. Yep, lab IdM client 1. So it created a record for that, which I would expect it to do that. And let's check the reverse zone. So 50.0.10 in adder ARPA. So by default, it did not create a PTR record. So that's kind of an interesting thing to note. All right. Now, for IdM client 2, we're going to do something a little bit different. So I'm actually going to go ahead and create it in the IdM server first, and then we will enroll it. So let me go to lab IdM server, and of course anything I do here you can do on the command line as well. And I encourage you with your practice to do things both in the GUI and in the command line, and then if possible and if time, do use the Ansible stuff as well, because I'm fairly sure on the exam, like any of it's free game. You might be asked to use Ansible to do something, and then command line to do something else, and then the GUI to do something else. I'm not quite sure how they would specifically test for, did you use these things? I mean, the command line, they'll probably ask you to write a script, but GUI, not quite sure how that would be tested, but it's good to be prepared. And of course, if I knew, I wouldn't be able to tell you anyway because of NDA and all that good stuff. All right, so in our hosts, we see lab client 1. We're now going, and it says enroll true. We're going to add a new host, lab IdM client 2. I'm not going to put its IP address. I am going to click generate OTP. There's a reason for this. So in order to enroll IdM client 1, I had to feed that the credentials of a privileged account that is allowed to enroll hosts. And if I do this via the scripting method or Ansible method, I would need to do the same. At some point, I will need to provide a credential. Well, think of a scenario where you want to, I doubt you would empower an end user, but maybe some other person on your system administration team or whatever, you want to allow them to do these enrollments, but you don't want to use their credentials, or you don't want to share an admin password or anything like that. This is where the generate one-time password is useful. So I'm going to click add. That's going to make me a one-time password. I'm actually going to copy that. and put it into a little text document, because once I click close, I will not be able to see it again. And if we see now, we have IdM client 2. It is not enrolled. If I were to click in here, it says there is no Kerberos key present because this has not been enrolled. So, key tab hasn't been made for it. And there is a one-time password present. If I were to take a look at IdM client 1, you will see that there is a Kerberos key present, and the host is provisioned for that. And it says there is a one-time password not present. Had I not made the one-time password, then it would have Kerberos key not present and one-time password not present. So we're going to use both our text document as well as our command line. This is something, if you're provided a GUI like this on the exam, no way to know if you will be provided that, but if you are, I like doing this kind of thing. So IPA client install -- help. If I spell install correctly, that'll probably be a little more effective. And what we're going to do is basically build the command and then run it and use this as a guide. Now, you could try to memorize all of these different little options, and there may be some folks out there that are really good at that. I can memorize stuff if I have to, but I prefer not, because in the real world, the stuff that you do every day, day in and day out, commands that you use all the time, you're going to have the common parameters and such memorized. But things that you might not do very often, such as like a manual install of the IPA client, you're probably not going to have that memorized. So you will be referencing stuff. And that's one thing I like about the Red Hat exams. It's kind of real life in the fact that you're not necessarily expected to have everything memorized, but you're restricted as far as you can't, go check Dr. Google for how to do something. What you have available is the offline documentation, for example, the -- help. So we'll have IPA client install. Slide this over a little bit. We are going to do -- unattended. For this, we need to give this a domain. So that'll be IdM, ejslab.com, realm. And you'll notice some of these are the same options that we had with the installation of a server. The IPA server that we're going to do now, this technically, I don't think you have to have this because it could use DNS to look it up. And that's one other thing. If you have the time, I suggest you do is try different scenarios. Try it with some options, without some options. You might get a variety of errors that may be useful on the exam when you're troubleshooting. You come across something and you'll say, hey, I've seen this error before. This is probably what's going on. Let's see. Host name. Now, providing this will or should have it not complain that I didn't have the Etsy host created. So this will be IdM client 2, IdM ejslab.com. Get my scroll bar back. Now the client options themselves, we're going to specify -- password, and we are going to include this password because the one-time password that was created, this is how the system will authenticate to IdM to complete the enrollment process. We don't need to use force or force join because there's nothing that's been enrolled yet. If we wanted to, we could set up the NTP settings. We're not going to do that. Let's see, trust DNS. That's not something that we need. As far as SSHD and sudo, we do want that that controlled by SSSD. We are going to do -- make home dir because when our users log in, I'd like it to create that home directory for them. See about SSSD options. I guess we could do enable DNS updates. That I haven't played around with. Might have to try that sometime. And let's attempts to update DNS and IP. Oh yeah, this is kind of like the DHCP stuff. What I was wondering is if there was an option to basically say make the PTR record, but I'm not seeing that. All right, so I think I have enough to do what needs to be done. So let's put it to the test and see what happens. So let's make a enroll.sh, turn it into a script. I'm pretty sure I don't think it's specifically for the client install, but I know for the server install, potentially install via script. And that's what this is going to be. I'll just add a little echo all done at the end there. All right, U plus X for enroll. Chmod will work better than chmod. I usually say change mode though, instead of chmod. And let's run it and see what happens. I'll clear my screen, so we'll start from the top. All right, so far so good, no complaints. And this will be just like before. Installation failed. Invalid credentials. Well, that's odd. I thought I had copied and pasted that exactly as it would be. Maybe it needs to be, actually need to be password equals. So when in doubt, before we do this, let's take a look at the log. I don't recall seeing in the options anything that says, hey, this has to be a one-time password. All right, so we go to the end of the log, work our way up. Yeah, it's going to be all the Python stuff. Yeah, setting the host name, or just use VI on the log. Start from here. Password none, principal none. That I expect because we're using the one-time password, so we shouldn't have to specify a principal. All right, so is there incorrect password? That seems odd. Anything else that would be of interest with this? This is it discovering, this I guess is creating the Kerberos configuration, gathering the certificates. It's actually kind of neat to dig through all this. Alas, I don't have the time in these little last reviews. It's do the thing, does it work? Great. If it doesn't work, do I understand why? And right now, I'm not 100% sure understanding why. Man, this is a long document, or lots of logs, which I suppose is good if you're troubleshooting. More logs the better, especially if they're useful logs. This is the client uninstall, so that's it. Yeah. Okay. What I am curious of, trying to think where roots, it's not going to be var log messages. Because it technically sent a message to root with some information. I would be curious to see that. All right, so some troubleshooting here. We know we copy and pasted that value. So we're going to try first equals sign, see if that makes a difference. I have a feeling it's not, but it may. I am going to run IPA client install uninstall. This I probably don't have to do. Okay, so I guess it truly did take care of that. I know when you're doing the server, if something goes wrong, you typically will run the uninstaller to make sure everything is cleared out, and then try your install again. I do want to refresh this to see if any status has changed here. Nope, one-time password is present. So we should be set from that perspective. All right, let's add our equal sign. Did it to the text document, but not to the actual script. All right, let's see what happens now. Invalid credentials. That is so odd. Let me do this. Since I have a ticket here, I'm drawing a blank on how to create from the command line the one-time password. I probably should have this memorized, but I'm tired on a Friday, so it's not coming to me. Pretty sure that OTP is for users. All right, well, let's do this. Reset a one-time password. Let me do, this is going to be a terrible one-time password, but let's try it and see what happens. So we're going to do lowercase monkey 123. Reset OTP. Let's go back into our VI, or back into our script. So we know the equals did not make a difference. Monkey 123. At least this doesn't take long to run, so it'll tell us pretty quick if it failed. Well, I know that var log is going to get long. This is something I'm going to have to just experiment with and figure out what's going on, because I don't see do IPA client install help one more time. So I'm fairly sure we should be able to feed the feed -- password the OTP and it work. And let me try it just with lowercase w. I can't imagine how that would make a difference, but Try it one more time and then I'll move on to bigger and better things. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's broke, so that'll be something I got to deal with. All right, so for the install and configure IdM clients, the method of doing it interactively and using an actual principal worked. The method of trying to use one-time password failed for reasons I'll not know. I do want to try one more thing though. I want to actually use the principal this time and see if this works with the principal. That was a capital M for security there. Let's see if this works. Yeah, that works. So there's something screwy with one-time password, and I'm sure that IdM isn't broken. I'm probably doing something wrong. So this will be a partial pass for the install and configure IdM clients. But between now and the exam, I'm definitely going to need to practice with OTP and maybe look back at some reference documents for free IPA, which sometimes when you're trying to figure stuff out, the free IPA documentation can be useful as well as stuff from Red Hat. So hopefully you found this useful, or at least you might have identified already whatever error I was doing for one-time password, and you had the chance to see failure in action. If you did find this useful, make sure you do click like. I also want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who has not subscribed to click the subscribe button and ring the bell when you do, so you know when new content is available. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you the next time.